Hey, folks, this podcast is brought to you by Fight Club Crate. Mystery gear, knockout prices, undisputed value, combat sports boxes delivered monthly. Use my promo code TAPTHAT15 at Fight Club Crate for 15% off your first purchase. They're adding new stuff to their monthly boxes every single time they're sending them out. Very unique products. If you are a combat connoisseur with a taste for style and a taste for some of the cool small companies that are out there producing stuff for you, follow them on Instagram at Fight Club Crate and check them out. That's finally a winner of a gift idea for the combat connoisseur in your life. And check out Substats. That is the analytics and intelligence platform for competitive grappling, giving promoters, leagues, commentators the data they've never had, matchmaking tools, athlete profiles, event breakdowns, and match analysis powered by computer vision. If you compete, you promote, you just love competitive grappling, whatever it might be, check them out at substats.app and on Instagram at substats. Check out the video I did with Abraham Diaz. That guy, I swear to God, he's messaging me every other day, it seems like, with something cool that Substats is up to. So, seriously, check them out. Even if you never subscribe, if you never, subscribe to Substats.app, like, the videos they put out on a daily basis are things that'll pique your interest, I promise you. They have the athlete profiles, event intelligence, match breakdowns, the layer that the sport has been missing, and use my promo code TAPTHAT for 10% off of your initial purchase there. Folks, it's been a big week in combat sports. We had UFC Fight Night yesterday. We have Ryzen and the Contender Series coming on Tuesday. We had one Fight Night. We had another week of PFL, and you might have actually heard about this PFL event. They've been marketing so many in a row, and this is post MVP merger. That my biggest criticism of PFL and Bellator over the years has been that dedicated fans of theirs might not know they're having an event on a weekend. I feel like, especially after the MVP merger, I feel like this event got out there. So I put out picks for that yesterday. I'll tell you, it was a rougher day for me than average. So, view that in retrospect with a grain of salt. But, that happens. There's rougher weeks. But finally getting back in the swing of things in this new house, as I've let y'all know about. Getting to put picks out there more, getting a bunch of interlude episodes on the books, and with me today, and just for a moment, I don't care if this ends up getting me a cease and desist letter or whatever it is. I just want to share the screen of the absolute joy experienced here. It's very apparent. So right there, a little bit further back, right there, even right there, you can tell from a bird's eye view. Right there. That was the image I was looking for. I don't know if you can see that, but the absolute joy in this moment. And now to continue.
Here, let's make it official. Let's take it up to Michael C. Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, the tap comes by way of a rear naked choke. Official time, 1 minute, 23 seconds in the round. Number one, the winner by submission.
I love it.
Folks, with me today, she is a 2-0 amateur professional MMA fighter, and now 3-0. That is just not as official on Tapology, but 3-0 as an amateur fighter. Give it up for Berea Clark. Berea, this is take 2 of us attempting to record this. The internet during my move from the old house was so bad, we just had to stop. You're back here with me today. I'm so excited. How's it going?
Good. Yeah, I'm excited that we get to do this. I was really looking forward to it. Unfortunately, the internet did not agree with us last time, but we made it back. And yeah, this is actually a really good timing because I just fought like 2 days ago. So,
I mean, Berea, I got to see the finish on, it was either a YouTube short or an Instagram video. My parents were actually at the casino last night at Hard Rock. They weren't at the fights, but they were. Oh wait, that was Friday. My God, the weekend goes fast. So
That's okay.
on Friday, they were at the casino. They were talking about the environment that was there for the fights. Like it seemed like pretty charged. And heard the commentators mention multiple times like how electric the crowd had been. The first thing we got to get to because it's so fresh is like, what was that crowd like at Hard Rock in Cincinnati for Cage Fury, being there in that environment where we know that a lot of local fighters are always going to be a part of those shows, and so what was that crowd like there?
Yeah, they were very, very ecstatic. So I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then so we traveled to Ohio to go fight. And as everyone knows, Michigan and Ohio just do not, we don't always get along. We're kind of rivals and everything. And as soon as I started walking out, I was getting booed. My opponent was getting the crowd was so loud for her; it was unbelievable when they announced me in the ring.
God.
They booed me right away. And even if they like knew her or not, like they heard I was from Michigan and they just did not like that. So, but no, it kind of fueled me a little bit because I remember when I heard them booing, I turned around, I looked at my coach and I kind of laughed a little bit and I was like, all right, here we go. Like this is gonna be fun. But yeah, I turned the crowd around at the end and like they were all cheering by the end for me. And as I was walking back, I mean, everyone on either side is congratulating me, like, is very excited. So it's just, the atmosphere of it. But that crowd was loud that night. It was a very full house.
Oh my God. No, like I think that's an interesting thing to explain to people, as you did, like with Ohio and Michigan, because really, like, I'm like Kentucky my whole life, but like on the 15 minutes south of Cincinnati is where I grew up. So like the tri-state area is very like strong, but like I mean, like some of our very good friends, like they're from Michigan growing up, and it's just like this is the place where people end up. You meet people from Michigan that are in the Ohio, Northern Kentucky region all the time, and
Hmm.
The Ohio Michigan thing is strong.
Hmm.
And that's especially at a local MMA show. Even one as high prominence as Cage Fury, which we'll get to in in a little bit of time here, however long it takes us. But when you say this fighter is from Ohio and the crowd goes nuts, like this fighter is fighting out of Cincinnati, Ohio, like you hear that and everybody
Hmm.
goes, yeah. And then you hear this fighter is out of somewhere in Michigan, and the whole crowd has a very different tone.
Hmm.
So that's crazy that like that's a part of the crowd that you got to
Hmm.
feel, even because for a lot of fighters, this is considered fighting locally for them. It couldn't have
Hmm.
been that far of a drive for you. Like what? Like absolute maximum 6 hours if you're
Yeah, it
in a
was.
crazy point, Michigan, and
Yeah.
so not that crazy of a distance. For a lot of fighters, this would be considered a local fight. But for you, it's like you're in enemy territory. What did that feel like as the fight started? That's got to be such an igniting factor. That's what people fight for, is to feel that feeling.
Yeah. Well, so like I grew up as like in a Michigan household. Like my dad was always a big Michigan fan, so I knew about the Ohio and Michigan rivalry for so long. I'm not gonna lie. Like as a little kid, I was like I thought Ohio was evil. Like it's just that's how it was perceived in my household. And obviously they're not. They're good people, great people in Ohio. But yeah, so like I knew that was kind of going to be the energy going in. I just did not expect to be aggressively booed, but it made me laugh. Like I didn't feel intimidated at all. I was kind of fueled by it a little bit. And then just to get that win at the end it felt so good. It felt so good.
And we'll talk about that win in a second. And like, because just like everything viewing and like the amount of your career that is available on YouTube, it's been like, God damn, like that was a good one. But I mean, like it's for people for Kentucky to possibly understand. It'd be like, and there's this fighter representing. Imagine that MMA was a college sport, and they said
Hmm.
that like this fighter is representing the University of Kentucky, and then to hear that the other fighter is representing the University of Louisville, It's like, oh, like I don't even know anything about that guy, but I really want him to finish the other guy.
Yep.
It's a similar. Isn't it crazy how like, isn't it crazy how even if you are never into college sports, which I know that like still applies to a lot of people in
Mhm.
this country, it still affects your life a lot. Like you still
Mhm.
would look at Ohio like, I don't like Ohio, but and all of it is because of college sports. It's hilarious. Um, but and then the other thing is like I remember the one amateur boxing match I had in college, which was not at a time in my life when I should have been taking any amateur fights of any sort in any like world of athleticism. But still, that event was thrown by the fraternity that the other guy that I was fighting was from. And I
Oh.
remember walking out for that boxing match, which was in like the like Lexington Convention Center. I remember hearing the boos at first, registering them and being like, "Oh, cool!" Like I like these are boos. That's fun. Like the worst thing you'd want to hear when you come up for a fight, I think, is nothing. But if you get a lot of cheers, you get a lot of boos. Like that's a fun thing.
Mhm.
But so to the most recent win, because there's one thing like when you're starting out off your career at all and you're able to get any wins against any people, really it is a positive sign. There are people that start their MMA career, there's people that lose all their fights, and then there's people that are winning all their fights, and now you're looking at those people that are winning all their fights. But to get a win under the banner of Cage Fury, one of the premier feeder promotions in all the United States and all the world in supplying the UFC with talent, Cage Fury is a very respectable name. When you see a card that they're putting on, it doesn't matter if it's in Honolulu or if it's in Anchorage, like they're putting on high quality cards. So to fight under that banner in an environment like the Hard Rock last night, downtown in Cincinnati, and to get that win in the fashion that you did had to have felt absolutely amazing. And, I will remind folks of the expressions of pure joy that we showed on the screen at the beginning of this. So, Berea, like, how did that win feel to get in the fashion that you did?
It felt so good. My coach has fought for CFFC before, so he was able to kind of give me a rundown of what I was walking into, what the atmosphere is going to be like, the cage size, and all that. So I was a little prepped beforehand, but it felt so good to be able to win under such a big organization and such a well-run organization too. It was so organized. People were just everyone was on top of it. There was a schedule, the schedule was stuck to. But yeah, just to fight in such a big cage in on such a big platform was very, very incredible.
I mean, here's the thing, like, your coach specifically, like, reached out to me some amount of time ago and was like, "Yeah, I got a lot of people from my gym that I think would be good for your podcast." And like, it took me a second to be like, "Yo, I want to talk to Berea Clark. What's she up to?" Like at 23, where no matter what division, whether it's men's or women's MMA, at 23, you've got all the time in the world.
Hmm.
And to be coming off such a big win, but the fact is, like, it's still challenging on the regional scene. Like, I just talked to some people that have been at atom weight and at women's featherweight. Even if you're a women's flyweight or strawweight on the regional scene, it is tough to pick the appropriate like spots, like fight when you should, fight the people that that like are meaningful tests for you, and work your way up in your career. What have you found in the opportunities available to you in like the Michigan and Ohio scene that you think at 23, like what's the state of that region's MMA and like how you evaluate your options moving forward?
Yeah, so women's MMA in general is just not very big. I mean, not very many women want to get in a cage and just punch the crap out of each other. So it's already a very, very small pool. Our team, we really don't fight out of Michigan at all. So I think we've had 3 fights in Michigan in 6 years. So most of our fights
That's
have been
crazy.
in Ohio. Yeah. So most of our fights have been in Ohio or Virginia, or sorry, West Virginia. But yeah, you just kind of have to take what you can get. But here's the thing, like the women who do want to fight and compete, like they're there to fight and compete. There's a few here and there that I've seen that, they're just like, oh, maybe I'll just try it once or do it that. Maybe it's not really for them. But pretty much every girl I've come up against, like they're there to come, they're there to win. Um, so yeah, it is a very it's hard to find your opponents, especially once you narrow it down then to a specific weight class. So
That's insane that you've had that few fights out of Michigan as a
mhm,
camp. I mean, Michigan is a huge state.
mhm,
Like in basketball, in football, in elections, it matters for all
mhm,
those things, and the that's just wild to hear. Because like I know what West Virginia has those, like, is it NLC or NFC? It's that one promotion that like is throughout like Kentucky and West Virginia.
mhm,
Um but it's just such a weird thing because like we have had women's MMA like in the spotlight for, I think you can say, at least as long as like Ronda Rousey existed at
mhm,
the top of her game. Like there's other people like in boxing and everything that maybe like were, pioneers in that department, but like really like all of combat sports changed when Ronda Rousey existed.
mhm,
And but it's still a long enough sample size. It's just crazy to me, like in regional MMA, you could do like, what they do, where it's like absolute freakish action MMA 25 presents like this lightweight title fight at amateur, and it's two lightweights that like, they're just like 3-0. They've been in like some brawls in their region of the country. But I think that you could just as much do, like, we have this women's flyweight title fight for the amateur flyweight title, and I think you're probably putting on better talent in a lot of like regions, and I don't think the crowd gives a shit at all. I think that the
mhm,
crowd wants to see good fights, no matter what. I think that
mhm,
MMA fans have proven over a longer period of time that good fights are good fights, whether it is women's or men's MMA. Yeah, I think that like the MMA crowd has mostly earned that level of respect as a fan base, to where like but at the same time, there's a reason that the UFC has not adapted women's atomweight or women's featherweight on a long-term basis, and it's because they don't think they can sell those, and that's like to the casual fans. But even it's crazy. Like Michigan, you would think that that is on the Lansing Community College's women's college wrestling team would maybe be able to win a fight in the UFC just off wrestling ability alone.
mhm,
Wrestling states tend to produce very talented wrestlers, men or women. There doesn't seem to be a strong distinction. Um, so like, what are you seeing out of the more Michigan regional area, even though like that's not where you guys have been like getting your fights, that tells you where women's MMA is headed in the state of Michigan overall?
um I've only come across a few other like female MMA fighters in our area. There's not a lot that come out of like the West Michigan area that I even know of, and even then, like I think they all travel to fight MMA too. So I think it's a big growing sport. We've just had a few other girls who have become interested in MMA at our gym. For the longest time, it's just been kind of me. Um, but yeah, I think it's growing, and I love that girls are getting more interested in it too.
I mean, that's just wild. Like, I would expect to hear that necessarily about like Wyoming or North Dakota, maybe North Dakota or Utah. Utah is a great example of where I'd expect to hear that. But like Michigan, you would just think that like, there just be so, and it sounds like there are so many women interested in fighting, but it just seems like the opportunities in Michigan aren't there necessarily, and you're looking to outside places. And so I mean, that's very interesting. I hope that changes. I hope there,
Mhm.
comes a world where, you guys are all able to fight like in Michigan. And if LFA came and did a card in Lansing, Michigan, that like there'd be a ton of fighters from the area, they'd be able to get on the card. Um, but like early in your amateur career, like I think the first amateur competition that you have on Tapology is that win by unanimous decision in Muay Thai. And
Mhm.
I think like that about a young fighter is something that I look at like a lot closer when they have, because like grappling experience, especially like amateur grappling experience, is like, all right, there's going to be wins and losses, first of all, just based on the rules of competitive grappling. There's going to be results that don't always look perfect, but like in grappling, it's just like, yeah, that like if you knew a 40-year-old substitute teacher, you wouldn't necessarily be shocked to hear that they have like amateur grappling experience on their resume. And I don't mean that's just like jujitsu as a sport, and like makes that something people are able to do at longer and in different stages of their life. But when people have amateur Muay Thai experience on their record and they have a win, it says something, because like the opportunities to be successful in Muay Thai are like brief, spurt. The rounds are not long, and they're not long fights, and it means that you had to have scored and have done the damage that you needed to win in a like limited but very important period of time. So what was like that amateur Muay Thai experience like, and what like things have you maybe noticed from that amateur Muay Thai experience that have like helped you as your amateur career has gone on, like since then?
Yeah, so I will say that that fight was 3 years ago, I think. 3 years ago, something like that. And our coach, he still signs our MMA fighters up for these Muay Thai fights out in Pittsburgh on purpose, because we are a very grappling heavy school. We have jujitsu every single night of the week, and so I mean, we have tons of grapplers, and I would say every single one of our MMA fighters is like very good strong grapplers. So but he signs us up for these tournaments on purpose so we can get used to our striking, so we don't have to just rely on our grappling, right? And I will say the Muay Thai fight was it was uncomfortable for me because I was very used to grappling. I've done like a lot of jiu-jitsu tournaments. But yeah, it was a very uncomfortable experience, but I needed it. I needed it to get better at my striking, to be more comfortable on my feet. And I will say my striking is the weakest part of my MMA game. That's why I try to get better at it every single day I can. But yeah, no, that was a very good experience. That was very different. That was also my very first striking exchange. Like I did that before I did any of my MMA fights too.
I mean, like the thing that I take from your amateur MMA career up to this point is that like you've done quite well at like blending as much of the different areas as possible, because like the reason that a couple of your submissions got like set up was because like you were making things uncomfortable, even like from a clinching position or whatever it had been. Like you continued to do things with your hands and while also grappling that like made a finish imminent, whether it was by submission or maybe by TKO, was going to be a possibility in those situations. So my son's awake. I think he's trying to play. But so like as a martial artist at 23 years old, like how have you found the process of like continuing to learn in as many areas as possible with what your gym tends to specialize, which naturally is going to influence any fighter that's at any gym, and being as well-rounded a fighter as you can?
Yeah, so I mean, we do jujitsu 6 days a week, and then sparring on Saturdays. So it's we while we do gi in our regular classes, it's we always train also MMA based jujitsu, right? So what is the best position for me to be in right now for MMA? Not necessarily for jujitsu, but for MMA. Because there's a lot of positions in jujitsu I will find myself in. I'm like, this is probably, sitting in my guard is not the best for MMA right now, or putting somebody in my spider guard is probably not the best for MMA right now, right? Because I'm not going to be grabbing somebody who sleeps in MMA. So just kind of working on what is best for the sport I want to continue.
It's crazy too when like people come from those gyms that are more jujitsu oriented, and like you see guys all the time that are like in like every single jujitsu tournament, they've got medals and in their different divisions and everything. And then they're going to fight in MMA, and then you wonder, like, is this guy going to be able to get out of the comfort zone of playing
Hmm.
jujitsu from your back? Like, it's a problem a lot of people have. It's
Hmm.
impossible not to because it might not feel like it to people at different stages of their life, but getting involved in jujitsu is like like entering into a whole new sport, like in your childhood, like almost like it'll have a similar like imprint on your brain. And so when you think to like start fighting fights like they're just in jujitsu, it seems to get to people mentally when they're not as used to fighting people for the purpose of MMA.
Yeah. It's very interesting. That's why wrestlers like excel so much, right? Because we'll get a lot of wrestlers who come into our jujitsu gym, and it's funny to watch how uncomfortable they are during their first gi class on their back, right? Because we'll learn a move from our back or from the guard, and they're like, I can be here, like I can be on my back. But then they excel so much in MMA because being on their back is like the worst thing ever, and it's not good. It's not good in MMA at all. So that's why they do so well in MMA all the time. But yeah.
And I mean, statistically, even with jujitsu,
Hmm.
even for as
Oh
crappy the
yeah.
guys are from their back, the fact is the guy that is on top in jiu-jitsu is probably an advantage of that particular exchange, even
Hmm.
as slick as you might be from your back. And so wrestlers just being able to get back to not being the one on the bottom is always like a guy could come in from being an NAIA wrestler in the United States, never having done a day of jiu-jitsu, and against like a certain level of people, he's obviously like gonna hit a brick wall. But against the vast majority of people they would face in just like common day, like rolling around jujitsu, like they're gonna have the vast advantage. They're just gonna be on top the majority of the time. They just know how to get there and stay there.
Hmm. Yeah, it's I really wish I would have wrestled in high school. I didn't. But I have a really good advantage too because there's a lot of people at our gym again who used to wrestle, and also our coach he's a former wrestler too. So a lot of the jujitsu we do learn is wrestling based. It's a really really good combination, and all of our jujitsu is very pressure oriented, which helps our MMA team immensely win all our fights.
What do you think of the important factors for a team that is with mostly a jiu-jitsu background, like as a whole, making sure that they're making the leaps that they need to in the striking department? Because like how gyms can be like if people don't travel around enough, or like people don't fight around enough, they might just have no idea what things are like outside of the four walls of their own gym.
Hmm.
And so you never know like what standard you need to be measuring yourself against. But like, how do you make sure as a group that like your striking is coming along when you're a group with a greater grappling background?
Yeah, I guess we do play into our strengths a lot. That's the biggest thing. Like we're reminded of this too in practice. Like if you're a grappler, your goal is to grapple. If you're a striker, your goal is to strike. Don't get on the ground because you're probably gonna lose, right? So just playing to our strengths, but also every single MMA fight starts on the feet, right? So you have to start there. But we work on our striking so we can get to the ground, right? So we use it to set up our shots, our takedowns, our wall work. Um, and yes, which has proven to be like a big success in my gym too.
And so like right now, like as you're coming off of this win with Cage Fury, and as there is still like potentially so much time left in your combat sports career as you want it to be, like there's all the like limit in the world at 23 and like undefeated as an amateur. Um, so like how because there's I have people on like this podcast all the time like talking about like how fighters like move throughout their career and how they make like different career decisions, what the opportunities are out there for fighters, with different promotions always rising and falling in level of prominence. Like, what is the way that you approach your career? Just seriously like, all right, I got a next fight like coming up, I'm gonna win that, and then I'm gonna schedule another fight, and then I'm gonna try to win that. Or is like what is the like management like philosophies? There's just so many possibilities out there for fighters, but it seems like the best strategy always seems to be taking it a day at a time and a fight at a time.
Yeah, it sometimes yeah, I can feel like that, but long term goal is just to get as many fights as possible, right? Because as an amateur you want to build that record, and as an amateur you're building experience too, as much as you can until you get to the pro level, and then that's when your record really starts to matter a little bit more. So I guess as of now just kind of taking what you can get, especially as a female I take a lot of what I can get. Two of my fights have been or no, I think sorry, one of my fights. No, actually two. Sorry, two of my fights have been at 130, and this most recent one was at 125. And that's just kind of me taking what I can get, right? Because I'm 5'2", 5'3". I should not be fighting at 130, right? More like 120, 115. But it's just kind of what's available at the time and at the moment, and with the like with the record too. You got to match the record too. So yeah.
130. Oh God. I mean, that's the thing that was what I talked about with Summer Only like just a couple days ago, and it's been a prevalent conversation topic. Is just like when you don't offer all of the weight classes to people, and when those opportunities don't exist, you're having fighters fight at the weights that don't make as much sense for them, and it that ultimately produces a lesser product. You want people all fighting at the weights that they should like be fighting at. And I think there's probably a trickle down process from the fact that there's no 105 145 pound fights out there for a lot of people, and so you get a lot of people forced down to fighting at 135 that maybe shouldn't be there. You get a people that are fighting at 115, maybe even 125 if they can find a fight at straw weight in their area who shouldn't be at that weight. And it ultimately just produces a lesser product. I don't know even why it's not more one off that they don't have fights at different weight classes outside of 125 pound to 135 pound. And even at 135 pound for women on the regional scene, it still seems like it's very hard to get a fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. And I mean, even like the UFC, like they cut down. I think the highest was 145 for the women, and then they just recently, in the past, what, two years or so,
It went with
the
Amanda Nunes, like
yeah, now it's 135, and I mean, Kayla Harrison, Amanda Nunes, I mean, they are cut. They look so small when they're cutting down to 130. I can't imagine like those people that big just cutting down so much weight. I mean, it's very impressive.
I mean, Amanda's done it a number of times, but like Kayla
Yeah.
Harrison was fighting at a jacked up 155 pounds for PFL. And
Hmm.
for the UFC at 135, when they first said that that fight was going to happen, I was like, okay, let's see what Kayla looks like at 135. Jesus Christ, that's a scary transition to make.
Yeah.
It went from a jacked up 155 to like making 135 pounds. Um, but flyweight it remains like still the most consistent weight it seems like in across the board for women to get fights at. Like it seems like bantamweight's dodgy in some areas. Strawweight, you don't know if a lot of promotions are going to put on those fights, but like women's flyweight, even at the professional level, seems like something that a lot of like more regional promotions will have fights to offer for. So like, what do you evaluate as like what the opportunities are moving forward? And being from Michigan, where like apparently you're looking to other states to look where your next fights are going to come from.
Uh, yeah, just I guess just seeing kind of what opens up. I loved CFFC. I really would like to continue fighting with them if they would have me back. Yeah, they were a great organization. Another really great organization was AFP. I loved my experience with them back in February. Very professional, very well run, and they're still a very new organization too. So they did really, really well.
Yeah, like I've seen more and more like promotional efforts from them or like just locally on like the internet and Instagram and stuff. So like that seems like a thing that they're doing right. You see a lot of promotions, I swear, that even if they're happening 5 miles away from you in the whatever civic center, you might not see like anything from them, not even a flyer like in
Oh my
the
gosh.
it, I mean, it seriously is just like the difference between a lot of promotions, whether they succeed in a local area or not, is just laziness or like a good work ethic. Because if you're an MMA promotion that is putting on a card of fights on a Saturday and in Maysville, Kentucky, if you tell enough people about it, I think that you'll get enough people to show up and have your next show. But there's a lot of promotions that I just don't know are putting in that level of effort, and whether the people that are apparently behind it are fully committed to like having the next event under that name.
Yeah, and it's a big part of it is like wanting like your fighters to continue fighting for you, right? Yeah, I mean, you want them to have a good experience. You want them to keep coming back, and AFP is definitely one I've really enjoyed fighting for. And then CFFC was a whole different experience. Like they were, um, not in the sense that the like AFP wasn't professional, but CFFC has been around so much longer, and they, um, I mean, they're huge. Like they're, I mean, owned by the UFC, right? So everything is. I mean, their pro fights were on UFC Fight Pass, so they really just organized it very well, promoted it super well. The amount of uh, posters and stuff that they sent me to post on my story, really
We appear to have lost Berea. Wait a second here. All right. Well, in the meantime, I'll play the top of that theme song. I want to continue this. This has been a super interesting conversation.
5 rounds. Every card tells a story. Some people watch fights. We study them.
All right, we got you back.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Like I can hear you.
Here, I actually have. Oh.
Can you hear me?
Got you back.
Okay, yeah, I'm back. Sorry, I don't know what happened. I guess I just got kicked off.
Um, so no, you were talking about Cage Fury, and like it seriously is a different thing. Like because there are some local promotions like Ohio Combat League, which I'm sure like you're familiar with, because I'm sure if like if they haven't like had a fight that you could have had, that I'm sure like one of your teammates was probably like thinking about a fight with Ohio Combat League. It's probably at some point.
Mhm.
Like they have a pretty good outreach, and I think that like the quality of Ohio Combat League events is really good. But like at the Cage Fury point, where like that really is one of the top, at the most liberal of estimates, that is one of the top 5, feeder promotions probably in the entire world. If you're, if you're considering that topic. So like fighting under the Cage Fury banner, not only is it like, because the opponent that you fought was what, 4-5 as a pro, or as an amateur, and so they were experienced. They had just actually, I think, won a fight in Tough Enough, or yeah, like that was their most recent fight. So like, it has to be a different level kind of confidence thing to get a win under the spotlight of Cage Fury, which I think like it would be hard to deny. Of like, when you're on a bigger show, there is just something you have to like be ready for. It seems like it's like, all right, this is a bigger show, but treating this the same as I do normally, or getting amped up enough for it, like whatever people's approach is. But a bigger spotlight is always still a bigger spotlight. So it has to be like a big confidence thing to get a win under the Cage Fury banner, and to have done it in as awesome a way as you were able to do it.
Yeah, so I researched my opponent a lot, and I knew she was 4-5. She had just come off a win in June, so she was already running on that momentum, just not even like 2 months prior to when we fought. But yeah, so I knew like if I were to get a win with CFFC, like it would be a good, like really good catalyst for me, and for my gym too, Daniel Gracie Team Michigan. So the goal was to just get a good win, make a good name for our team, and hopefully get me and a lot of my other teammates back in that cage too, because it was such an incredible experience. Yeah, and a lot of I gained a lot of traction after that win. I mean, it's only been 2 days, and my social media has blown up quite a bit.
That's awesome. I mean, that's awesome, like, for people to see, like, when they capitalize on those big opportunities, and to see just, like, the next day growth, and, like, oh my God, like, how many more people followed me and commented on my, like, stuff the last day because of that. That's a cool thing to see. And, like, with Cage Fury, I mean, they put on events, all over the Midwest, a lot in Pennsylvania too. So like, if an opportunity like with Cage Fury in the future arises, it's not a very big logistical hurdle for you to get through, as getting yourself from there to wherever they're going to have an event.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, they did such a good job. I really enjoyed being with them too. And yeah, I was super excited when my coach asked if I wanted to do it. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. But just like 3 days prior, I had already signed up for IBJJF Chicago, which was the next day. So I was like, well, I guess I'm doing both. So I was running. I went from Ohio back to Michigan, got like 2 hours of sleep maybe, and then drove to Chicago and competed in IBJJF the next day.
Well, how did that go?
It went good. I got gold in my bracket, and then and then I ended up calling it for the open. I was like, I'm good. My back was already starting to feel a little sore too after after the fight from like the slam. So I was like, you know what? I think we're good for the weekend.
Yeah, after a jiu-jitsu competition and a rear naked choke victory, where in which you were like slammed because you got like standing back mount.
Yeah.
Yeah, your back felt a little sore after a couple of days. I think that's understandable. Uh, well, like, who are some of your favorite people to watch nowadays in MMA? Because, like, it's a very interesting transition period here, where, like MVP just did the whole like merger with PFL, but like they put on big women's boxing matches, big events overall. Like there's the PFL, there's One, there's Rising, there's KSW, there's Octagon, there's a whole like world of MMA out there. But it's a whole like and the Contender Series will be on Tuesday, but this is like a period where with the UFC and like under the new deal, the way that those events work is like there's still like more superstars on the rise. Like they're kind of trying to identify, it seems like, who are going to be the next superstars of MMA because there's always got to be a plan for the future. Like, who are your favorite people to watch right now on like even a more local level or at like the absolute like highest level of combat sports?
Um, I I well, female fighter wise, I love Rose Namajunas. She has such a big heart. I love her attitude. I love her dedication and just her heart for the sport. Like she puts 110% into all her fights, and you can really tell. Like nobody believes in her more than her, and I really love her attitude when she goes into her fights. I love watching Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway. Justin Gaethje's recent win against Ilia Topuria at the White House card. I've never felt so patriotic in my life. Like I was like, this is so cool. This is awesome. But yeah, I couldn't have like planned it better myself if it was like scripted. But yeah, that I love watching Justin Gaethje because he's another person who has just so much heart for the sport, and he will fight until the very last second, which has been a lot of his fights. You just see that grit all the way until the end.
Isn't it crazy with Gaethje like that winning the title at 37 when you had always come up short for the absolute like undisputed lightweight championship and against the guy that he was supposed to be doing it against.
Mhm.
99 times out of 100 throughout the history of MMA that doesn't happen. And this is like that is a rare thing to overcome. It's not often, yeah, and like I've said this like 5 times now. But I always want to reiterate, like if Justin Gaethje had gotten it against Charles Oliveira or Max Holloway because it was like the vacant UFC lightweight title, it'd be a whole other thing. But the fact that he did it against a boogeyman like Ilia Topuria was a whole different level of like, my God, he beat that guy. I didn't think anybody could beat that guy besides Islam Makhachev. And that guy just did it, like on the White House stage, like absolutely like cinematic scripting of it. But like with Thug Rose, like with what you said about Rose is crazy because like before she fought Joanna the first time, and there were all the press conferences where she was like, praying to herself with her eyes closed on stage. And it's like 99 times out of 100, you would look back at that as like, wow, that fighter was scared and terrified of that person. But like, just not in this case because she went out like, and the ways that her fights with Joanna ended both on both occasions was so crazy. I don't know if I'll ever forget where I was when Rose finished Joanna the first time. That is up there with people might forget, but that really is up there with like Juliana Pena versus Amanda Nunes, I think, because leading up to that fight with Rose, it was like, my God, Joanna is going to absolutely murder Rose Namajunas. Like that was the feeling around it. The same as you would like with Amanda Nunes before Juliana Pena. It's like, look, Juliana Pena has earned her way here. She's talked a mad game, but I just don't see a world where Amanda Nunes doesn't absolutely demolish her in the first round.
Yeah, we love a good underdog for sure, and just yeah, and just Rose Namajunas, like her attitude towards it, and I think before a lot of her fights, she just sits there and tells herself, she's like, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. And she really, truly believes it. And she goes into it and she is just ready to um, take on whoever is in front of her.
Well, Brett, we've talked for a little over 45 minutes here. This has been a super fun conversation. Really glad we were able to make this work this time from a technological standpoint. And if there's anything else you want to say or anybody you want to shout out, the floor is yours.
I just want to say a big thanks to my team, Daniel Gracie Team Michigan, based in Grand Rapids. I have an amazing support system there. They are an amazing group of young people who are just ready to work each day on the mats, encourage each other. shout each other out. We are each other's biggest cheerleaders. I mean, my most recent win is that all of my wins would not be possible without them pushing me every day in the gym.
Folks, thank you so much for listening. Have yourselves a great week and peace.